This week I thought I would do something different. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Willia Eaglehawk. I am an author and I am the CEO of micro book publishing company Revolutionaries. This channel is where I share all about my life as a book publisher and an all-round creative human trying to make it in the world. Today I thought I would share with you my journey of how I first published my book, Adult Limerence. So I don't know if you can relate to this, but I have wanted to be a writer my whole life. I always wrote short stories here and there, and the idea of writing a book was something that was so high up on my bucket list. But I could never finish writing one. I would always start and I'd get about 20,000 words in and lose interest, or something would happen that would make me stop writing. So I ended up with all these tiny projects that never really went anywhere. But still, I really wanted to be a writer. It seemed that 2019 was going to be my year. I sold my business and I set out on the huge journey of getting published no matter what. And it seemed that I found the perfect book project to work on. I had come up with this idea for a book called Adult Limerence. My background is in sociology and I love writing about musicians and their personas and their relationship with their fans. So I had this idea for the book, and I really wanted to seriously pursue publishing. Just a few months prior, I had been able to work on a book project where I was an editor, so I got to see a lot of behind the scenes of how a book gets put together, especially a non-fiction one, as I wanted to write sociologically and I wanted to write about my own life and experiences as well. So because my background was in sociology, I thought what I would first do is learn how to put together a proposal and pitch it to an academic publisher. Because I thought, hey, if I've got all these kind of big ideas and kind of social theories and social concepts, they need to go into a more academic setting where people can learn from them and use them in more scholarly settings. So when it comes to fiction books, I learned that they do need to be submitted completed, whereas non-fiction books, it is really common to provide a proposal and an outline without having written the whole thing. This allows the editor or the publisher to get to know the book and to see how it's laid out and structured and work on the development of the entire book with the author as they go along, as opposed to trying to change the structure and the overall tone of the book if it's already complete. So knowing this, I set about writing an outline for an academic book and I took it to my former publisher. They came back and said it was too niche. They gave me a rejection, primarily because the book was all about BTS, a South Korean boy band, and they said maybe I should look at publishing in an Asian imprint. The problem that I had with this is that I believed my book had a much bigger audience. I mean, the fans of BTS ARMY are potentially into the hundreds of millions. That doesn't seem very niche to me. So after going through this process, I felt pretty disheartened and I really didn't like the idea of trying to fit everything I wanted to do into a purely academic book. So I sat down and I thought about what would really excite me. And this is a really important part of my process, to block out everything else that's happening around me and think, what would make me excited? What would make my heart race? What would almost terrify me? What's something that would really push me? So I put together an outline for a cross-genre book that wove together my love for writing fiction and my love for writing social theory. I had all of my big concepts and ideas to prove my social theory, and then I wove this narrative, this fiction narrative of the protagonist Echo, throughout the book as kind of an ever-evolving case study, an example of the big concepts and feelings and thoughts that I was trying to convey to the reader. So I put together a proposal which included a synopsis, which was like a really kind of brief overview but a little bit different. And then I put together a chapter by chapter outline where I wrote like the chapter number, the title, and then gave like a paragraph description of everything that would happen within the chapter. And within that, it was not just saying in this chapter XYZ will happen. It's more of an argument. It's really showing how I will develop the theories and the characters. So I put this together and it was a very interesting learning experience. I also did a competing title search and showed the demographics of ARMY, who I believe to be the main market for this book. To support my proposal even more, I wrote the first chapter of the book, which was so exciting. I really wanted to give the publisher something that they could read, to know the tone, the way that I was writing, how I was working these genres together, because I was proposing something quite experimental. So I wanted them to know what to expect. I was so proud of this proposal. It took so much work, but it came out so naturally and really helped me hone in on my ideas for the book as well. The next thing I did was go out and try and find places that were accepting book submissions. And what I quickly learned is that most publishers don't accept unsolicited submissions. So that means submissions that don't have representation. I didn't have an agent. So I instantly started looking into that, and I also started looking into indie, small, mid-sized publishers because they were more open to taking unsolicited manuscripts. Around this time, I found an amazing website that I definitely recommend you check out if you haven't done so already. It's called Manuscript Wishlist, and it's a directory of editors, agents, and publishers, and they're able to say what they specialize in and what they would like to receive pitches or queries or submissions on. So this meant that I could go through and type in different keywords like pop culture or K-pop or sociology and see all the posts that these people were making saying, I would like a manuscript about a South Korean boy band called BTS. Could you imagine if that's what they were saying? But it would link to their tweets and they were able to share all their cool ideas like, oh, I just watched this movie. Wouldn't it be cool if someone pitched to me this kind of book? So I used this to find all sorts of people who were open to submissions. And I went about customizing my query letter and different aspects of my outline to meet the needs of these people so that they know I understand what they're looking for, what they've already published, and I can kind of see how my book might fit in with what they're looking for. The problem with this process was that I had stopped writing the book. I wrote the first chapter and then I stopped to wait because I knew that agents and editors and publishers didn't want a completed manuscript. So this wasn't very good for my process because I was getting really jittery. Like I wanted to write the book, but I wanted someone to say that they wanted to publish me first before I started writing the book, like I needed permission or something. So that wasn't too great for my process at all. Then slowly but surely, I started getting replies to my queries. I tried to make at least 10 queries a day, so I was sending a lot of emails out and the rejections started rolling in. Of course, you always hear about rejections, right? Like you heard how many times Harry Potter got rejected, for example. I knew it was going to be hard, but nothing can really prepare you for the sting of that first rejection. I wanted someone to tell me that my work was good, that it was worthy of being published. But that's not what I got. I got short rejections, I got rude rejections, I got long rejections. They all hurt just about the same amount. And with each one, I became more and more disheartened, which was a problem because I still had to go and write the book. It quickly got to a point where I couldn't even look at my inbox. I was so anxious, and I actually asked people if they could open my rejections for me. It was around this time that I found an independent publisher from Chicago with an editor that was really, really cool. I sent her a query email and she actually got back to me really quickly and she said, yes, I would love to see your proposal. I'm very interested in publishing this work. And that felt amazing and terrifying. So I sent her my proposal and the chapter example and I waited. A week later, she got back to me with a rejection, but it was the most valuable rejection I've ever had. She said that she loved the book. She gave so much positive feedback, but she said she couldn't publish it because she wasn't confident enough to break it to an American market. Because of the nature of my book being cross-genre, it doesn't really fit anywhere. Even to this day, I can't easily explain what Idle Limerence is. I can't say, oh, it's a romance novel. Oh, it's an enemies to lovers plot. None of that applies here. It's scholarly, it's literary, it merges real life people with made up people. It's metaphysical, it's theoretical, it's so many different things. And this response from the editor really helped me understand an important part of the publishing industry. They have to be able to accept books that they can easily sell. And this particular editor, though I think she was the right one for me in that she understood the work and she loved it and we would have probably worked great together, she felt she couldn't do justice to the book. I mean, I was so sad because it really felt like the nail in the coffin for me. I was done trying to convince people of my book's worth. But it was so important to know that my book is potentially very good and that a major roadblock to its success, no matter who publishes it, will be the marketing. We'll be trying to tell people what it is in simple terms. And with that knowledge, I stopped trying to get people to publish my book. And I just went and wrote the damn thing. In reality, I had to stop asking people for permission. I had to stop looking for someone to give me the approval that I needed to write the book. My whole life, I wanted to be a writer. I had never finished writing a book before, and now it felt like I had the passion, the purpose, and the drive to finish it. So over the next 2 months, over 38 non-consecutive days, just under 200 hours start to finish, I sat down time and again to write Adult Limerence. And by the end of January 2020, I had a 72,000 word manuscript ready to be published. It truly terrified and excited me. The hardest thing I thought I would ever do was write a book, and I did it. And there's something that I can't quite explain, but it's like this new mental threshold that you step over when you finished a book. Just knowing how that process is. It's a long process to push past all your limitations and fears on a daily basis. You kind of come out the other side and feel totally reborn. So despite feeling that way, I still had one major problem. Who was going to publish my work? A traditional publishing process can take many years, and I didn't want to wait around for that. I had more books that I wanted to write. Now that I knew how the process worked, I wanted to do it again and again. I had ideas just spilling out of me. I had thought about self-publishing a few times before, but the stigma of it really got to me. Once again, I just really seemed to want the approval of a big publisher. But I realized, more importantly, I needed just to get on and write other books. And the best thing I could do is find a compromise between self-publishing and traditional publishing. So on that day, I founded my own publishing company and I published my book. And from there, I published many others. And that's how I went from all those rejections to being a published author. I backed myself. I realized that my work was too strange to fit in anywhere else, and I was the best one to market it. And I've been backing myself ever since. I hope that gives you some insight into my process, and I hope it helps you on your journey as well, even if it's just a little bit. So here's my book. It's nearly 4 years since it came out, and I wouldn't have it any other way.